Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Gritty Hour. I'm here with a special guest, Bill Holst, who is the finisher of a book called Alan Hovhaness, Unveiling One of the Greatest Composers of the 20th Century. And there's an interesting story about the production of the book and of Mr. Hovhaness himself. So, welcome to the Gritty Hour, Bill. It's great to have you on.
Yeah, thank you, Tom, for inviting me.
Oh, it's great. And you're we talking before we started recording. You're over in Washington State, Seattle area.
Correct. Yep,
Okay. Well, it's great to have you on board. Thanks for coming on.
sure.
So, tell us a little bit about this book. I know it's been out. It's the ink's still wet on it. It only came out in late 2025, right around October, November,
Yep, October 28th.
and it was written by, and I want to make sure I say this properly. Correct me if I'm wrong. Hinako Fujihara-Hovhaness, correct? Did I say that correctly, Bill?
Yeah, it's Hinako
Hinako. Okay.
Fujihara-Hovhaness.
Okay, good. I wanted to make sure the right word was out there. So tell us a little bit about the book.
So I guess to start off with, so Alan himself was a great storyteller, and he used to tell my mother stories about different composers such as Beethoven, Mozart, Sibelius, and he not only told his music stories about them, but also their personal stories, different happenings in their lives. And my mother became very interested in these stories, and um, so her and Alan would stay up into the night, and Alan would get very animated and tell her these stories. And so after Alan's passing, my mother realized that she wanted to do the same for Alan. And she also realized that, many people know him for his music and his compositions, but they don't necessarily know the man behind the music. And so she felt this was kind of an essential thing for her to do, was to write this book about all their adventures. It covers a lot of their travels. It documents a lot of important dates in classical music, performance dates. It goes and tells about reasons behind certain compositions and about the different commissions. And it also kind of gives you insight into the back part of classical music, some of the gossip that goes behind the scenes. And so that was kind of how the book started, and that was her intention. But what really started off as kind of a biography or documentary really turned into a love story between my mother and Alan. So as you read it, you feel the real heartfelt emotions behind some of the stories that they have.
Does she delve? I'm sure she delved in. You mentioned some of the major composers. Did she delve into his inspirations? What got him into that field?
Yeah, some
Yeah,
some of those, yeah.
yeah.
Of course, there's a big story about some other composers that Alan um, had traumatic time with when he was at Tanglewood. I don't know if you're ready for that story yet, but
Hit me. I'm ready for anything.
okay, yeah. So in uh, in 1942, so this is after Alan was a an organ player at Watertown. He actually earned a scholarship at Tanglewood there in Boston. And a couple of his um, classmates were Aaron Copland and Leonard Bernstein.
Wow.
And so in this class, everyone would bring in their compositions for a particular day, and then they would listen to it, and there would be, comments and discussions afterwards. So when it was Alan's day to play the music, his music, Aaron Copland spoke loudly over his music and wouldn't let anyone hear it. And then Leonard Bernstein actually called it ghetto music. And so that
Is
was
that right?
Yeah, that was a traumatic thing for Alan. He left Tanglewood and ended up burning over 1,000 of his compositions.
Wow.
But thinking
Including
back on it,
including the one they disparaged or
um,
insulted. I'm curious what song. Yeah.
no, actually that particular piece survived.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
I guess this was pre Aaron Copland's fanfare for the Common Man, right?
yeah, I'm not sure the date on that, but I mean, it seems like everything happens for a purpose because it actually allowed Alan to he had made a working relationship with William Saroyan, who was a famous Armenian writer,
Hmm.
and um, Saroyan would write do his writing and poems, and Alan would write music for it, compose music for it. But Alan was still this was like just about the time he left Tanglewood, but Alan was still a starving composer, and William Saroyan had written a letter to Leopold Stokowski,
Hmm.
and he started listening to Alan's music, and he um, uh, performed Alan's first symphony, Exile, at the Los Angeles Philharmonic, and then later on he uh, performed Alan's second symphony, which is the one that you heard, the uh, Mysterious Mountain.
Yes, I was just listening to that before we started recording. Put me right in a good mood, Bill.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I say, it happens for a reason, and I look back on it, and I'm just wondering if Leonard Bernstein calling it ghetto music was actually a compliment, because if I recall, Bernstein later on wrote the soundtrack for West Side Story, so I'm
Yeah, yeah. Hey,
thinking maybe Alan influenced him to write that.
I'm actually shocked that he made a comment like that. You know, not that I knew the guy, but it didn't.
Yeah.
It seems out of character from what I know of Leonard Bernstein. But
Well, I mean, at that time, there was a big controversy over uh, avant-garde music, which was, pretty much what they're pushing at Tanglewood at that time. And Alan pretty much stuck to he was a stubborn guy, and he believed in, the pure music, the, beautiful and harmonic and of
mhm,
that nature. So, I mean, he was, and that's why he didn't get as much publicity and success as others is because that was out of style at that time. And
right.
Alan, didn't change. He composed what he wanted to compose.
Mm. And just getting back to my earlier question, what were his influences? Do you know?
Well, definitely Sibelius, and um, he actually visited Sibelius. There's a kind of a funny story behind that. Um, he actually early in his when he was a younger composer, he actually went to Finland or Poland. I can't remember.
Okay.
But anyway, he knocked on the door and they kind of pushed him away and said, no, you can't see him. And he was out in the courtyard and kind of looked up, and second story, he could see a shadow in the window. And so he started throwing the pebbles against the
Wow.
window. And finally, they said, okay, let the guy in. And he sat down and talked with Sibelius for quite some time. And
Oh,
I guess they were very good friends. And
very good. Yeah. Yeah. Do you mind if I show? I'm going to share the. I just want folks that are watching us on YouTube. If you're listening to us, you could go on YouTube, and I'm going to share the page for the book. Do you mind?
it's fine.
So we'll start with Amazon. I just wanted to get people to see the book cover most importantly. I don't know if you can see that on your end.
Yep, I can see it.
So I don't. I may have said this while we were recording already, but this is relatively a brand new book. It just came out late October. I see the release date there. So has it been? How has it been received so far?
So actually, it has been received fairly well.
Hmm.
Of course, it's a little more difficult to sell because it is really targeted to a certain group of classical music lovers.
Right.
But what we've been doing is we've been trying to tour with different symphonies and bringing the book along with it, and either selling or giving some to some of the conductors. But uh, all the people that I've talked to have very good comments about it.
Hmm.
And a lot of people saying, "Oh, I never knew that about Alan. I know his music, but I wasn't able to make that connection." But a lot of people are very happy with the writing.
Right. So, but that's your mom, right?
That's correct.
The author. Now, unfortunately, she passed away before the book was published, and I
Right.
guess that's when you stepped up and said, "We got to finish this project." Correct?
Correct.
And about how long in the process was it when you stepped in?
So at the time,
Hmm.
um, I was in Oklahoma City. I was a avionics systems engineer, and I took early retirement because I saw this as being um, a bigger thing than what I was doing.
Right.
And so that was at about we started, doing all the editing and looking for pictures and doing the design work. We started about the end of well, maybe mid 2023.
Okay.
So it was about 2 years in the process.
But your mom had basically fleshed out all of the texts by then, right? Before she passed away.
Well, so I had many conversations with her before she passed away about this book, and one of the things she did not want to do is make it a literary masterpiece. And as you read it, you can figure that out. Basically, she wanted to keep her personality in there and what she calls keeping the Orientalness in the writing. So, of course, there were several areas that we had to kind of rewrite to make it understandable,
Okay.
but we tried to keep that, her personality and the Orientalness in the writing.
And she was a Japanese native.
Right.
And just for those who aren't overly familiar with Alan, where was he from?
So Alan grew up in Somerville and Arlington, Boston, near Boston,
Okay.
Massachusetts. His father was Armenian and his mother was Swedish, and so, or sorry, Scottish. Um,
Hmm.
but Alan's father also is a very interesting story in himself.
Hmm. Well, what about it?
He was um, a chemistry teacher at Tufts, and he also worked on the Manhattan Project. He was one of the lead
Ah,
chemists on the Manhattan Project.
okay.
And his earlier story is that he was on a ship um, to leave Turkey with the Armenian um, the shipload of Armenians trying to leave Turkey, and their ship hit some rocks and crashed, and he had to um, he spoke many languages, so he spoke French to act as if he was not Armenian, and he was able to escape.
Oh,
So there's many adventures about him escaping. He's also written, um, Armenian dictionary, Armenian American dictionaries, several writings. So
mm.
he's very, very interesting story himself.
I've always said there's millions of untold stories from the World War II era that just have not been tapped into, you know. I don't know if you're looking for a second project, Bill, when this one is, when this one
Well,
is,
I am looking into right now, writing a documentary or having a documentary about Alan and including his family in it also.
okay. And you starting to flesh that out now that this is out?
Yeah, I'm actually talking with a movie director in Los Angeles right now.
Hmm.
We have a very um, very good historian, Alan Hovhaness historian that lives in Glendale, California. And so he has, we talk and he gives me, technical um, details, and then I tell the personal side, and we kind of mesh our stories together to see, you know, fact check them. And so he's a very good person to have with it. But
Right. Did Alan and your mom meet after World War II?
yes,
Okay.
so they actually met in 1974 at one of Alan's piano recitals.
I see. Okay. It's funny you had mentioned the other two composers because, you know, you can count on maybe two hands the amount of well-known American composers from the 20th century. And Alan and the other two fellas you mentioned before are probably right up at the top, you know?
Right. So Alan, he was very good friends with John Cage.
Uh-huh.
Um, he also, we're trying to find a little more information, but he was a ghostwriter for Artie Shaw. So he wrote jazz
Interesting.
music also.
Is that right? Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
And um, he also in the very early 60s, there was kind of a group that he hung out with in New York, who were a group of artists and musicians and things of that nature. But he was very, very close with Yoko Ono. In fact, they drive around New York and she would recite poetry to him while Alan was driving. And of course, this was before John Lennon.
Oh, is that right? Before
Yeah.
Lennon and Ono got together?
Right.
Interesting. Very interesting. And he met, well, he had already known your mom then, but right?
No, no, as a
No.
matter of fact, I, yeah,
This was after the
that
fact.
was,
Yeah.
yeah. In fact, several times I've sat with with Alan, and he'd tell me stories all the time, but the Yoko Ono stories were forbidden. My mother would stop those conversations.
So I'm sure some of his symphonies are in, I don't know, this might be a crass way of saying it, in rotation among the orchestras around. You know, when they do a, uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
Y- yeah. Yeah. I try and keep track of where they're playing these different symphonies, and so yeah, there is still a lot of interest, in his music, and
Hmm.
so really, um, the Hofana's Fujihara Music Company, that's the main purpose, is playing and performing his music. The book helps to promote his music, and so uh, there was a period where my mother passed away, where she was sick, and period of about 7 to 8 years where there was really no promoting because of her sickness.
Right.
And so what we're trying to do along with this book is kind of do a revitalize his his presence out there.
Hmm.
But I mean, even those 7 or 8 years, the company was on Copilot or well, autopilot. It still had a lot of people playing his music.
Right. What time frames would you consider his wheelhouse where he was the most productive?
Uh, so it kind of depends on which era of his music you like. He was probably most productive, I would say, maybe in the late 60s to early 80s.
Okay. So your mom was a muse as well as the author of his.
So my mother, she had a singing career when she met Alan. She was in the um, Seattle Opera Chorus, and she was a soloist throughout Seattle for different churches. But
Okay.
she did. Alan helped her career a little bit, but then she finally ended up, dropping her career and concentrating on all Alan stuff.
Hmm.
And basically, she did, all the surrounding work, feeding him, all the budgeting, all the business. And, Alan was the producer of music. He was a very prolific. I mean, he has over 500 compositions, and 67 of those are symphonies. And my wife and I are going through all the archives, and we are finding many, many unpublished pieces. So, I mean, he's well into the, six, 700s.
Yeah. And what I mentioned before, the aforementioned Mysterious Mountain, which was part of Symphony Number 2. About when did that come out? Do you know, Bill?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. I
Well,
would say it's probably, after 1942, because Exile was right around 1942.
hmm,
But yeah, I can't give you an
that's
exact date
okay.
on it.
I appreciate the All-Star Orchestra letting us use a snippet of that um, as as we just listened to. Um, so the book's been out for a few months and it's gotten good reviews. I was looking at this earlier today, so it has been fairly well received, Bill. Right?
Yes,
Yeah,
I think so.
yeah. So it's a well written book. Um, I'll show these reviews for. Oh, you don't get one yet in Amazon. Can I? Do you mind if I show the official website for Alan?
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know if you can see that. That's the Hovhaness Fujihara Music Company Inc. And that's the one you were talking about before, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So are they like the owners of his body of work, or how does that work?
So
Is it a licensing
currently,
company?
I'm
Yeah.
the owner of the company, and
Okay.
it owns probably everything after, I'd say, 1977, and then some other manuscripts prior to that. So
Hmm.
I'd say about half of his catalog we own.
Okay.
The other half is owned primarily by C.F. Peters.
I see. So you license it out when it's required or asked for.
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
on this website, the last menu item there is store, and we're planning on opening the store probably in 1 to 2 months to
Okay.
sell his sheet music off that.
Hmm.
And basically, right now we just sell sheet music over email, but that's kind of not as efficient as if we have a store.
Right. And so this is your mom's history here, or the history of the
Right.
company? Okay.
Yeah. So my mother had a very interesting history also.
Uh-huh.
Um, my grandmother and was Korean. My grandfather was Japanese, and kind of the struggles that they had through World War II.
Right.
Japanese and Korean were not. Um, did not like each other. I mean, they had wars between them, and
Yep.
so kind of their struggles, making it through World War II, after my grandfather died, and then so they went it's kind of the rags to riches type of story there.
Right. Those troubles predate World War II, in fact, between Korea and Japan.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's always difficulty between those two nations. Yeah. So this explains the history of the family,
Right.
and I'm assuming how they how your mom eventually got involved with Alan, or is that touched on this page?
Let's see. Does that it? Well, when you get down to her section, it
Yeah.
does mention, her meeting Alan, and then, kind of the Hovhaness Fujihara Music Company.
Right. So this would be your mom's or your grandmother, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And then
So
the book, there is a section up here for book, and I am assuming that's the book we're talking about tonight.
that's correct. Yes.
And can people? There's a good picture of the cover. It's hardcover right now. Is it only hardcover at the moment?
Currently only in hardcover. Yes.
Okay. I'm sure down the road it'll be in paperback or.
Right. So there's basically two editions. There's a standard edition, which is kind of vinyl cover with the dust cover, and then you also have the collectors, that comes in a box, a
Mhm.
custom box, and then it also has a leather cover on it also.
Interesting. Okay. And this is a different cover, or what's the difference between
So
the left one and the right
so
one?
it contains a book that's just the custom box that is kind of the
Oh,
protector.
okay. I understood. Okay. Um, were you involved in the cover design? I'm just curious.
So everything other than text, I was part of the design.
Hmm. It must have been laborious going through photos and finding the right one and editing.
So that was probably the most time consuming, so we had several pictures, but we had to find out who actually had the rights to those.
Ah,
And some of those pictures are, 50, 60 years old, and so we had to, you know, do our diligence trying to dig up these old photo companies that no longer existed,
hmm.
and
Just
try and
curious
find out.
about the photo on the cover of the book. Is he? Which orchestra is he conducting? Do you know? From
I don't know who.
okay, just it's curious. I'm sure they were doing one of his symphonies, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Yes,
So, okay. Oh, you can buy directly from this site too, right?
correct. Yes,
Yeah, and Barnes and Noble. I see it's out there. Good. And I've been saying this because I've interviewed a number of authors this year. You can go to your independent bookseller and they'll order it for you if they don't have it. Correct?
that's correct.
Yeah,
Yes,
and that helps obviously the publisher, the writer, and the independent bookseller, and it's you'll get it the next day or the day after. So it's
right.
good. Yeah. Do you mind if I explore this music tab for a second?
Sure.
So this I'm assuming delves into his work, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Kind of gives a little bit of history of Alan.
Right. So this is the catalog of over 500 works. That doesn't include all those works you talked about before that
That's right.
that he
Yeah.
destroyed. It's
Yeah.
it's kind of sad actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm. And the one in particular that he was performing for the other two composers survived somehow. That's interesting. Do you know the name of that piece? My curiosity's killing me.
I, I,
The name of the piece he was performing for Leonard Bernstein and Aaron Copland.
yeah, that was his first symphony, Exile.
Oh, Exile. Okay, I'll have to check that out because my curiosity's killing me. Why they thought what they thought. You know. Do you think Leonard Bernstein said that as a motivational Tool, or what do you think? I'll get a little context around that.
Well, I think Alan was kind of an outsider.
Uh-huh.
So like I said, his music style was different.
Hmm.
Um, and in the art world, um, different like sexual preferences come into play too. So I think
Right.
there was a lot of um, political type thing around
Okay.
it.
See like pedestrian, someone who has a pedestrian interest in classical music like myself, I like it, but I don't delve deep into it. You wouldn't think that there would be a lot of that around that genre of music. But I guess like every other genre of music, it has its human element to it.
Right.
Yeah. So, but who are these folks that he's in
So
the
let's
middle of?
see. So the gentleman on the left is one of his good friends, Lawrence Sobel. He is a
Okay.
clarinet player, and as a matter of fact, Larry Sobel, he's has had many connections to Woodstock.
Oh,
Um, yeah, he was very good friends with um, hmm, can't remember his name right now.
that's okay.
Sorry, but yeah, he was very instrumental in Alan's career. Also, as a matter of fact, I had gone out to New York a couple of times and spent some time with Larry Sobel. Like, very very energetic individual, very fun to be around.
Mm,
But he's since passed on also.
oh. What would you consider Alan's most popular symphony or work?
I think you know his Second Symphony, Mysterious Mountain,
Yeah,
is what everyone knows,
right.
but he has several other ones depending on you know what kind of music you like. There's always um, my favorite is Symphony. Um, let's see, what is it? Symphony 50, which is Mount St. Helens, which kind of captures the Mount St. Helens eruption.
Hmm.
And there's other ones like "And God Created Great Whales." Uh, Saint Prayer of Saint Gregory is another big one
Yeah,
that sells.
I was gonna, I didn't, I ran out of
But I,
time before I wanted to check that one out too before we started recording, but
right, I
yeah.
think his biggest seller that I see is "Spirit of Trees,"
Hmm.
which is a piece that includes harp and guitar.
So
And
one of his musings, I'm thinking, was where he was, right? Where he lived.
right,
Yeah,
so yeah, so he decided to stay in Seattle because of the mountain ranges.
right.
He lived in Switzerland also, but he mainly stayed here in
Hmm.
Seattle. But he always said that he heard music in his head. He thought everyone did.
Hmm.
And so he'd always carry notebook and pen with him because if he didn't write it down that would be lost. But I always thought that Alan was in tune with the universe and he was able to capture what the mountains, the winds, the trees were saying, and he would transcribe that into his music.
Right. And he did a great job. That's why he's popular. Um, oh, you even provide the viewer a recommended playlist, which is I did listen to Mysterious Mountain. I was about to listen to Prayer of Saint Gregory before the time
Yeah,
snuck away from me.
yeah, and those are links directly to the YouTube.
Okay.
I would also recommend the Rubaiyat, the last one there. That's a great piece, and um, um, it's narrated by Michael York,
Oh,
which is really interesting.
oh, so it's a spoken piece with a musical background.
Right. So
Yeah.
there's a certain kind of narration, and
Okay.
then there's music associated with it.
Well, I do like those. I do like those a lot. So I'll probably check out all 8 that are listed here, you know. And answered the question I asked you in the beginning, which was his influence. Um, so do you see his influence in other works after he passed away? Or other artists that have named him as a big influence?
So, talking with our music historian in Glendale, or California, he says that Alan has a very major impact on rock and roll music. And
Interesting.
the even though it's cross genres, it's they still had communication with other artists in the
Right.
music field. Carlos Santana actually, again, another player at Woodstock, he actually has his interpretation of Alan's Mysterious Mountain on his Oneness album.
Okay.
I think it's called Transformation Day.
Hmm.
And then another interesting thing is that I don't know if you're familiar with Ravi Shankar.
Yes.
He was a sitar player.
Yes.
So in late 1959, early 1960, one of his travels was to India,
Hmm.
and he met Ravi Shankar there.
Okay.
He wrote a symphony for him that included orchestra and sitar, and then Alan was kind of the promoter, the initial promoter of Ravi Shankar in the U.S.
Ah,
And then shortly after that, of course, the Beatles connected up with him, and
yeah.
Sergeant Pepper's, and
I was
I
going to
think
ask
that
you, Bill, if you think Alan had an influence on the Beatles, or did they rub shoulders or cross
um,
paths?
so I think he did, but we'd have to ask somebody. But he did invite Paul McCartney to his 80th birthday celebration in New
Hmm.
York, but
Hmm.
he did not attend.
Ah,
So I think they
interesting.
were, aware of each other.
Yeah,
I know Frank Zappa had an interview where he calls Alan one of the most far out composers, classical composers. So I
interesting.
think he
Interesting.
did influence some of Frank Zappa's music.
Interesting. Yeah, and the Mothers of Invention, right?
Yep.
Yeah. People don't realize Flo and Eddie from the Turtles were in that band for a while. It
Yeah.
sounds like a weird mix, but it's the truth. So I wish you the best of luck with the. First of all, I appreciate you coming on the show,
Sure.
and this
Thank you.
is a very interesting book about a very interesting man, and I'm looking forward to delving deeper into his music. To be honest,
Great.
I probably will listen to that all 8 of those songs before I put head to pillow this evening. um, so Alan Hovhaness, excuse me, unveiling one of the great composers of the 20th century, and it just came out. It's relatively new, only a couple of months out, and it's available on Barnes and Noble online, Amazon, or go right to the website that we're looking at now on YouTube, alanhovhanessmusic.com, and you could buy it directly from there. And Bill, I greatly appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And when you're ready to come out with that documentary, shoot me an email and we'll get you back on and talk about
Okay.
that.
Sure.
In the
Great.
meantime, I'm looking forward to learning more about Alan.
Good.
And thank you so much. And uh, yeah, I think I told you before we started recording. Zoom always changes their buttons, so they spend half the time looking for the buttons. But anyway, thank you again, Alan. It was a great pleasure. Excuse me, Bill. It was a great pleasure having you on the show tonight.
I'm. Thank you for having me. I like your format that you present.
Oh, I appreciate you saying that, Bill. Very nice of you to say. And I hope you have a great evening. And we'll talk to you down the road. I hope.
Okay.
Thank
All
you
right.
again. Okay.
Thank you. All right.